What's good, everyone? Today I'll be going through my round 4 AFL tips and predictions. As we always do, we'll review last week's round to see how I went. And let's take a look. So we got a 6 out of 8. It was better than last week, but still could have been a little bit better. I don't think it was the most difficult round to tip. And it doesn't help when I always get the Thursday game wrong. I think this has been potentially like the 4th in a row that I've gotten wrong. If you count Carlton Hawthorn, that didn't give me a tip in my comp. So Thursday games seem to be the toughest games. They've always have been. Last year as well. Obviously, Port Adelaide, they were just so off the pace. It felt like that even in the first quarter when they were in front. Essendon win that by 12 points, but it wasn't a game to be watching back. That was not the best Thursday game, to be honest with you. Carlton take on the Bulldogs. I did tip the Bulldogs, and they came back from like 5 goals down early in that second quarter. So really solid effort. Bevo coached well, and the Blues are standing out the battle of a Owen Fort start, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Next game was Melbourne v Gold Coast, and it was an emphatic win for the Suns. I thought they would win quite well, but they won by 58 points. St Kilda as well, speaking of emphatic wins, 82 points. That's their biggest win since 2015. Super pleased about that. If you guys want to check out my St Kilda Richmond vlog, link in the description. It is on More Cardman, so go check that out. Hawthorn v GWS. It was another comeback win for a club. Hawthorn came back from like 40 down at one stage in the first quarter with a win. And this one was the one that really annoyed me because I originally tipped Brisbane. I think I said in the video that if Tom Stewart was named, I would change. He was named, but then he was a late out. I still stuck with the Cats. They started, I think they were up by 32. Once again, another side came back, and of course it was Brisbane. And the Sunday, these games weren't the best. I did stream both of these games with comfortable wins from both Adelaide and Freo to give me a 6 out of 8. So looking at the comp, we've just hit the goal of over 1,360 members by the end of the month. It's more than the goals Tony Lockett's kicked in 1365. But you know what? Screw you guys. I don't want members. I don't want anyone to watch my videos. All of you guys are absolute wankers. I hate all of you. Stop watching my videos. And also April Fools. Alrighty, so let's take a look at the best scorer for round 3. And using the Joker, we had 3 people get a perfect score. That's, you know, I don't recommend using a Joker for a round where you only have 8 games, but it's good enough. For Mutant, 8, Tough 14, and Brody with perfect scores there. Best scorer without using the Joker. Now, we had a few people get a perfect score. It wasn't the most difficult round we've ever seen. We had almost 45 to 50. Xavier Hendy, Go Dons, Watson's Hawks, C. Morgs 01, and Oscar Post, the 5 best scorers. Let's take a look at the overall rankings, and it is James Donovan Clancy with a score of 34, Fat Flamingo with 33, Brody with a 32, Jack Patterson with 32, and Caleb Luck with 32 as well. As you can see, majority of the people have used both their Jokers, apart from Brody. Sean Feehan, best tipper so far, that hasn't used a Joker. Now, overall in the rankings, I'm currently sitting at 1,077th with a score of 15. That's brilliant. And a little bit better in the round rankings, coming 748th. But yeah, the only way I come back from here is just going some crazy upsets. Once again, the stinker of the week again goes to Corns for tipping a 0 out of 8. Sure, this guy's voluntarily trying to get the worst score possible, but he's doing it better than most people are at actually getting the best score possible. He's actually got a 0, tipping Port Adelaide, Carlton, Melbourne, Richmond, GWS, Geelong, North, and Wait. Once again, shout out to Corns. He's another legend of the week for how bad he is at tipping. Now, AFL Fantasy, I had a terrible, terrible week. I made so many mistakes. I didn't even get 1,700. But Jacob R. sitting number 1, not only in my comp, but in the overall fantasy rankings. That's unbelievable. Christopher L., Jordan H., Angus B., and Mason R. ran at that top 5. So for the big calls, as it is a buy round, the 2 are the requirement for the week in avoiding the punishment. And let's just quickly take a look because I think we did okay. I'm pretty sure we've avoided the punishment here. I think we have. So the first game that helped me out was the St Kilda Richmond game. I said that the Saints would have 10 or more individual goal kickers, and we ended up with the 10. So thank you, St Kilda, for kicking a lot of goals. Next one was GWS v Hawthorn. I said the Giants would score under 65 points. You wouldn't believe they scored 64. They only scored like 24 points after quarter time, and that was all I needed. I didn't get any more big calls correct, but we avoided a punishment for the first time in 2025. And that punishment was AFL Legends. 133 likes to sing the whole Collingwood theme song as loud as you can at a Carlton game. I was going to do the Carlton Bulldogs one last week. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get a hold of a Bulldogs Guernsey, and the person that I was going to go to the game with couldn't go last minute, so it made it a bit more difficult to film. I want to do it for North v Sydney this week, but just anyone hit me up in the DMs, email me if you want to get involved, if anyone has like a North Melbourne or Sydney Guernsey in medium or large, because for myself, I only have like 3 or 4 teams Guernseys, and it's not going to be worth going out of my way and buying it just for this punishment. So if you guys could help me out, I can do it for this week at North v Sydney. Well, the voting is open for round 3. If you guys want to help out and contribute to submitting your 3-2-1 votes for the best player that ultimately goes on to win the Cardi medal, then submit your 3-2-1 votes down below in the description. Remember, try and help out by putting in the right spelling for the first and last name. And yeah, let's just get as many votes as possible. So help contribute, links in description. And at the end of the year, we're going to be doing a live stream, kind of like a Brownlow medal. I'm going to set another subscriber goal. Let's try and get to 45,000 subscribers by the start of Gather Round in 9 days. If we can do that, I'll be giving away Team Coach footy cards in the next few weeks. So hit that subscribe button and enjoy the rest of the video. Righty, let's start things off with the first game on the Thursday night. And coming the last time this has been on a Thursday, we have Collingwood take on Carlton at the MCG, one of the biggest rivalries in the competition. No matter where these two sides are at, we normally always see a very fierce contest because no side wants to lose to either one or the other. But right now, it is saying 91% are going Collingwood and only the 9 for Carlton. And that is a fair analysis heading into this game, considering the Blues are currently 0-3. And of all the sides, I would even throw in Melbourne, to be honest. Of all the sides in the comp, I wouldn't feel like there are any more sides under more pressure than the Blues at the moment. It's a weird one with Carlton because they haven't been awfully terrible. I guess if you throw away that Richmond game in the last two, they just cannot hold on to a lead. They always seem to start off really strong, leading at halftime in their 3 games, but shit the bed after halftime. I don't know, they just sort of go into their shells. It's a bit of a weird one. Like, their gap between their best and worst players is the biggest in the comp, and maybe like that's sort of a factor into why at the end of the games they just can't really run out a full 4 quarters. They just seem to wear out. They haven't got those damaging ball users enough either. Like, we saw a little bit of that from Zach Williams in the first half, but not as much in the second half. Brody Kemp seems to maybe be that key forward that could actually work as a target. He kicked 5 goals with a career best performance there. But yeah, I mean, their season, realistically, if they start 0-4, we know the fans are going to lose it. They already are. Daniel Gorringe has blue hair. They just need some miracle, really, to turn around their season, because I feel like they could probably still be capable, the Blues. They have the quality on the park, but it's going to be hard for me to really back him in against Collingwood. Collingwood look to be a really good side this season. I know they haven't started off as convincingly as maybe others would have suggested, but they're still 2-1. Should be fresh off the bye as well, and I just think they have, just around the park, the matchups just suit Collingwood a little bit more, I feel like. I think up forward, there might be a bit of a headache for the Carlton defenders, because if you don't have a Wiedering, honestly, who else is there apart from Wiedering that really can be sure they'll get the job done? The Pies have always had the wood over the Blues. That's another thing as well, even when the Blues were the better side in recent memories. A lot of people think this could be a close game, I've seen as well, and hopefully it is, because I'll be going to it. But I just feel like the Pies are going to get a comfortable win. It's just not going to be the best Thursday night game for Collingwood and Carlton, and I reckon that Collingwood will win the game by 26 points. My big call, I reckon the margin after halftime for the whole game stays over 20. Next up, we head to the Cattery for Friday night footy between Geelong and Melbourne. Now, before we go through the game, quick disclaimer, this will be a Friday night live stream on the channel. I haven't done a Friday night stream, I don't think, all year, because I've been at the Friday games, but this is going to be an exciting one. I got a guest. We'll have a lot of punishments, dares, a lot of things on the line as well, a little bit more than just the footy. So if you guys have nothing on the Friday night, tune into the stream, watch the footy, and have some fun elsewhere. But this one, unfortunately for my sake, considering the Cats are back at home and they're almost invincible there for the most part, surely they should be too strong for Melbourne. Now, I know Geelong have had a rocky start to the season. You know, they struggled to score after halftime in those wet conditions after being up by 32 points. I think after halftime, they only scored like 2 goals and didn't score anything in that third quarter, and it didn't have the answers. They didn't know how to handle the ball. They didn't really know how to use it. They kept bombing it inside 50, and the pressure of Brisbane just seemed to be a bit too overwhelming. So, yeah, surely they can respond here against Melbourne, who have been in some really poor form. Arguably the most disappointing side to start off the season. They're clearly in that position where they're trying to change up their game plan, but it is not working at all. And it seems like they're too small, they're too one-dimensional in the midfield. You know, they just keep getting smashed in the midfield. It's as simple as that. Their inability to want to move the ball quickly as well, I feel like that's a little bit of an issue for the Ds also. And they also just can't put up a winning score. They're not scoring enough their last 3 games. And defensively, they're not where they used to be either. I think, you know, definitely missing out on a Stephen May. For me to see the Ds win this game, I think they're definitely going to make this one a contest. They got to go back to their old roots where they were focusing on contest and defense. But do I think that's going to happen? It's just going to to be too difficult for me to see that being the case. If it's a wet weather game, I haven't actually checked the conditions. I think they might suit the D's, even though the Cats are a solid wet weather side as well. But the D's against the Giants were, really good. But I don't really need to go into too much detail with my tip here. Can I see a world where the D's win? It's going to be really hard. Geelong 1 and 2 as well, so they'll be hungry to bounce back at home with a big win. And I think they'll get a big win. I'm going to go the Cats to win this one at Sheem HBA. With 45 points, a big call. I'm going to say that the D's failed to score 8 or more goals. Alrighty, next up, we have an awesome game, awesome lineup here. We've got Gold Coast and Adelaide at People's First Stadium. This is crazily turned out to be one of the games of the round, probably the pick of the bunch when you're really looking at it, considering these are probably the two biggest surprise packages from the start of the 2025 season. You got Adelaide, who are 3-0. You've got Gold Coast, who are 2-0. And they've got, by a fair stretch as well, the two biggest percentages in the league. So it's going to be a good game of footy for sure. Both sides play fast, fun, daring footy. The Crows, I mean, they've started their season off brilliantly. The question mark on Adelaide still might be the fact that they haven't beaten anyone awesome. I don't think they've beaten a finals quality side yet. You only play who's in front of you. And Adelaide have been not just winning, but tearing sides apart, scoring, 160, 130, 115. They've won every single quarter that they've played in so far, which is the first time since 1988. The Crows, I think, will come out to play, but the Suns, they're finally back at home. It's been a while since they played at home, and we know how good the Suns can be when they play games at home. Likewise, with the Crows, they've also gone up against some probably easier opponents. But again, like the Crows, they've breezed past the two teams with an 87-point win, I think it was, against West Coast, and a 58-point win against the D's. Both away games, so I've said it before, these away wins by massive margins are just going to give them so much more belief that they can win anywhere. But I think both sides here, they've finally got tests against some decent sides. I can see both of these sides, maybe make it far in the final series, which is quite crazy to think about. Rail and Anderson could honestly both be all Australians. With their form they've started this season, Rail Anderson, Ben King as well. He's kicked 10 goals in 2 games. I mean, I think I'm leaning more towards the Suns because it's at People's First. They've made that ground a fortress last year with 9 wins, the first 9 games. Or 7, I think, because they had 2 in Darwin. And I think they'll probably end up being the slightly stronger side. I feel like Gold Coast are a little bit higher in terms of their development than the Crows. But at the end of the day, it could be either or. I also think this will be more of a low-scoring game than expected, just because these two sides have scored well over 100 every week. I think they're going to want to defend a little bit stronger, and they both have some decent defenses. I think the Suns will find a way and maybe kick a couple goals late to push away at a 22-point win. A big call. I'm going to say that both sides combine under 160 points. Next game we have is between Richmond and Brisbane at the MCG for the Twilight Clash, and I think this is as simple as a tip should get, at least so far into this round. Richmond, obviously, before the season, everyone was tipping them to finish last, and we all thought maybe they would be a much better side than what we once originally thought against the Blues with that win, but they've shown over the last 2 weeks that they're kind of falling back to all of the expectations we had towards the Tigers. So yeah, it was a disappointing game against St Kilda. I think when you're losing by 82 against the Saints, it's going to be a tough season. We may have expected that they'd have big losses like that, but it was weird because they were in front in the second quarter. They really took it up to us and had passage of play where they seemed to be the better side. The pressure was on, the tackling pressure, all of that. But once the Saints got going with their fast paced and playing style, running down the wings through the middle at Marvel, there was just no answers for Richmond. They just could not keep up. Once again, they haven't been, I don't think, at their very best. You don't need to be playing your best footy at the start of the year. As long as by the pointy end of the season, when heading into finals, that's when you start playing your better footy. I feel like that's what matters a lot more. So, I mean, I can see him taking this opponent easily at the start, like maybe they did against West Coast, as well as it being like a Richmond home game at the G. I can see a competitive Richmond side. But overall, I'm still going to obviously be tipping Brisbane. I think they'll be good enough to get a big win still. I'm going to go Brisbane by 60. With a big call that Richmond will be leading at any stage in the second quarter. Next game we have is Saturday night footy at Marvel Stadium between North Melbourne and Sydney. Another game I'm looking forward to watching. I'll be going to this game as well. This is also the game that I might be doing the Guernsey punishment. I'm not sure yet. Obviously, in recent years, you look at this matchup and you haven't really got too much excitement because it's normally a Sydney win. But this is where I think North Melbourne can really actually start winning games against some quality sides like Sydney. And with Sydney, I still don't know fully where they're at this year. Are they going to be a premiership threat, or are they going to be a side fighting for the 8? North Melbourne, they're becoming a very hard side to beat, particularly at Marvel Stadium. Last week, obviously, at Adelaide Oval, it's a hard opponent. They were outclassed, and I thought 36 points probably didn't reflect the overall margin and what it could have been, but the North hang in there, and I thought they were okay. They found enough avenues to goals when they needed to. Swan season is back alive as well. Obviously, they had the bye, but the week before, they did beat the Dockers. Riley Bice was the star. He kicked that match winner. Well, he set up the match winner to Amadi and also kicked the goal before. So I don't think the Swans were amazing in that game either, but they got things going after quarter time with a better side. They had a few chances they butchered. They're going to want to be sharp on their game against North, because I think North Melbourne, I said earlier, they're not easy to beat at Marvel, and I think they can get things going early. Hopefully get off to a little bit of a better start, because that's been a bit of a worry for North Melbourne in the last 3 weeks. I think this will be a high-scoring game. North are a high-scoring side of Marvel this season, and I think they'll be able to replicate their form against the Ds. Do they win, though? That's the thing, though, because I've been tipping North and they've been losing. Sydney, obviously, are the side that they should be winning on paper. I don't think they're going to be fearful of this opponent either, so yeah, let's go North Melbourne in this one. I'm going to go an upset tip. North by 7. Larky and Curtis combined for 8 goals. My big call. Moving now to the Sunday games. First up, we have GWS West Coast at NG Stadium. Can I just tip GWS and move on? Or do I really have to provide reasonings? Because, I mean, you don't need to be a genius to be tipping GWS. Even if you've never watched a game of footy, just look at the ESPN website. 99% to 1%. That's all you need. The Eagles are $11 to win. That's more than the odds were for Richmond to beat Carlton in round 1. This is going to threaten to be a big blowout as well, because I think the Giants, they are a side that can actually blow out sides when they want to at home. It was a hard game for them last week in tough conditions in Tassie. They kicked the first 6. Yeah, they couldn't really keep up with the pace of the game. Hawthorn were just a little bit better suited to the conditions, and that breeze was crazy. That really was. But they'll be back at home, and this is more familiar conditions. I think it'll be a drier game as well. Harley Reid's a problem for them as well. He doesn't want to defend, and he doesn't really want to do stuff to help the team. He just wants to get into fights and be an aggressive player for some reason. I think the Giants, they'll dominate early on, I reckon. They'll get off to a strong start, and that should be enough to smash the Eagles. I think the Eagles might kick a few goals here or there. Won't be a massive, massive blowout, but I'm still going to say the Giants will win this game. I'm going to go by 52 points. I reckon Lockie Whitfield will have 35 more disposals. Next up, we have a massive game on the Sunday Arvo. We have the Power take on the Saints at the Adelaide Oval. Now, this is another intriguing matchup, not just because I go for the Saints, but I think if you're a neutral, you'd probably want to be tuning into this one, because this is my honest opinion. I think this is the Saints' best chance to win at the Adelaide Oval against Port Adelaide in probably ever, to be completely honest, because the Power, they were really poor last week. Way too fumbly. Their midfielder currently really out of form. Connor Rosie, was he tagged? He just didn't really get going into the game. They needed more out of him. They needed more out of Horn Francis. He's had a really poor start to the season as well. Morales was their best midfielder, and he's only played a handful of games. And then that last quarter as well, they were even worse. The Power, they got absolutely outplayed. Couldn't handle the run of Essendon. Now, obviously, the Saints beat the Tigers by 82, so they're on the back of some pretty good wins now, 2 in a row. Good win against the Cats at home, and obviously Richmond are Richmond, but when you win by 82, it goes to show that you're a good enough side to be able to win by that much, and we outscored them by 74 points in that second half as well. So it does prove that the Saints can win games big, and they also proves that the Saints can score well. I saw Wooden Spoon Data say this on the Saints TV channel. I think in the last 10 weeks, excluding Adelaide v Brisbane games, we've scored almost 100 points on average a game. But it was a really impressive game, especially considering we didn't have Steele playing. We had obviously other players out. We fielded a lot of youngsters, and they all played to their position really well. Lance Collard, Max Hall, to name a few. We've got a side that I think can match it with some of the better teams in the comp. Now, where Port Adelaide are at, I'm not sure. Everyone are writing them off. It's just hard to have the faith in the Saints when this is our bogey side. Port Adelaide always beat us. Every single year, the Power beat us. We've only beaten them once since 2010, and we cannot play well at the Adelaide Oval. But streaks and records are meant to be broken. I think on the weekend, it was a 14-game winning streak that the D's had against the Suns. The Suns broke that. I think with the Port shot of confidence, I know they're wearing that really cool Guernsey for this game for some reason. I think the Saints can take it up to the Power here, head to the Adelaide Oval, and walk away with the 4 points. I think Ken will be tactically outclassed by Ross, and I'll be heading to this game with a Saints support. It should be good fun. I'm going to back in the Saints here. You've got to back in the Saints as a Saints supporter heading to the game. I'm going to say we win by 15 points with my big call. The Saints score more than 100 points. Last game of the round, we have once again Fremantle in this time slot. Take you on the Bulldogs, 5:10 p.m. Vic time at Optus Stadium. I actually think this is going to be the toughest game of the whole round to be tipping. The Dogs have certainly surpassed a lot of people's expectations heading into the year from their start. They still have a pretty tough fixture to go, but from what we've seen so far, they've done enough to prove to me they could still make the 8 for sure when they get some of their star players back. They came back from like 5 goals against the Blues. They just had the belief they could run over the top. Tom Liberatore starred, Sam Davidson. Obviously, Sam Darcy was quite influential as well, and Norton. He kicked a couple goals. Bailey Dale, very impressive stuff from the Dogs. And I think Luke Beveridge might be the man. He's getting the most out of their plays now, which is, we didn't see that last year at all. Now, the Dockers obviously also won on the weekend. I feel like I wasn't as impressed with their win, despite them smashing West Coast. I think if they played against a better opponent, that would have probably not been a win, possibly, because they did butcher a lot of the footy, go inside 50 with their score, and they probably should have won by a lot more, but we got to see him finally win that midfield battle. Callum Sarong winning the Ross Glendenning medal for the 4th time. You know, the midfield just got on top very early on. Josh Tracy and a miss combined for 7, so they got a little bit better. Avenues up forward as well, and I think they're just slowly building onto a start to the season. It was a slow start, but hopefully for Freo's sake, I think they could still be a good enough side to make finals, and this win against West Coast. And they win in a game that a lot of people would have been nervous heading into. A lot of Freo fans would have been nervous. Can kickstart their season. It's a test here, though, because the Dogs have been one of the more competitive sides all year. They've been a competitive side for every quarter so far this season, bar maybe one. Freo's best at home should be good enough, but once again, the Dogs, I think they can win this game as well. It's going to be a really hard one to back in. I think I'm just going to lean towards the Dockers because it's at home. Maybe they have a little bit more to play for. If they don't win here, the Dockers, I actually don't think they're making finals altogether. So I think this will be one of the games of the round to finish things off in round 4. But I'm going the Dockers by 4 points with my big call that there'll be 9 or more lead changes. So let's quickly just take a look at the tips. So we've gone Collingwood by 26 on the Thursday. We've gone the Cats, the Suns, the Lions, North Melbourne, GWS, St Kilda and Freo. And, a cheeseburger or a chicken burger? Well, I'm not spending money on DoorDash after what happened last week on the stream. Fuck's sakes, they got my fucking order wrong. You fucking idiot. That'll be it for my tips for round 4. Let me know down below your tips and big calls. And yes, I've uploaded 2 back-to-back tipping videos. I don't want to do that for the rest of the year, but I've got a few bigger videos cooking that I've been editing. Haven't finished yet. I should have the creator tips out tomorrow, and there should be another video out later in the week, which is a bit unique to the channel. So stay tuned. A lot of stuff is planned. I've just got to bring in the money. I need the money to support all these plans that I have. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video.